Good morning. Thank you. That's what I was waiting for. Good morning and welcome to the Gwen Ifill Forever, a Black Heritage Stamp dedication. This is the 43rd Heritage Stamp of a beautiful collection. If you look around in the back, you can see some of the other stamps previous. They're absolutely beautiful. These stamps depict not only the greatness of Black History Month, but the greatness of American history. I am so grateful that you decided to spend your morning with me at this stamp dedication. It's fantastic to see so many familiar faces. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't point out Juliet Mayers. She is the first award winner of the Gwen Ifill Trailblazing Award. Thank you. I hope I didn't mess that up. It's great to have the Postmaster of Boston. Thank you. Michael Curry. Yeah, Michael Curry. Donna Stewartson of Simmons University. Keith Motley will be here shortly. And Nia Ham of NECN and sister station NBC Boston. I'm sorry, NBC Boston, sister station NECN. Thank you. Today, we dedicate and honor Gwen Ifill, her courage, her inspiration, and her legacy. We're going to start with a bio, Donna Stewartson of the Gwen Ifill College of Humanities, Media and Arts from Simmons University. Thank you.
Thank you, Kareem. Good morning, I'm Donna Stewartson from Simmons University, the Gwen Ifill College of Media, Arts, and Humanities, and I'm really excited to be back at UMass Boston. This is where I started my higher education career with the Center for Women in Politics and Public Policy. So I'm really excited to be back at UMass. Yay! Today, I am joining you to honor our college namesake. She's one of our most revered alumni, Gwen Ifill. I'm excited that we are going to honor her with this wonderful Forever stamp. Gwen Ifill graduated from Simmons University in 1977. And she majored in communications. She dedicated herself to print, television journalism for nearly 40 years. She was one of the most successful female African-American news correspondents, holding positions at the New York Times, the Washington Post, Boston Herald, the Bay State Banner, NBC, and PBS. At Simmons, we are so proud of Gwen Ifill, and we feel especially responsible for her legacy. Gwen Ifill was a trailblazing journalist who changed the face of the news and also the debate stage. In 1999, she was the host and managing editor of the Washington Week, being the first woman and first African American to moderate a major television news show. In 2013, she became the co-anchor and PBS NewsHour co-anchor with Judy Woodruff. And Judy, as you know, she's a wonderful person that also hosted an event at Simmons University. We had a Gwen Ifill hour where she came and talked to students, and it was just amazing, and that happened in October. This show with Judy Woodruff was an all-female team that anchored and also talked about national nightly news. It also had a lot of political parts to it where Gwen Ifill was able to show her talents, and we're really proud of her. I remember being profoundly impacted seeing someone that looked like myself on TV. I felt inspired by her accomplishments, and I felt so proud of Gwen Ifill. Gwen Ifill did her homework. She asked the hard questions, and she did it with integrity that earned her a lot of respect. She believed in mentoring, especially Black women, and she lifted as she climbed. How fitting that in the fall of 2018, Simmons University opened the Gwen Ifill School of Media, Arts, and Humanities. At our college, we have an entire wing dedicated to Gwen Ifill. It has her press passes, it has quotes, it has an entire timeline of her life. It has lovely pictures, and also we have a night boardroom that's also dedicated to her. And in that boardroom, we have a lot of her awards. We also have her beautiful jackets, the jackets that she wore at 2 vice presidential debates. So we really try our best to honor Gwen and her legacy. Her talent and her commitment to the field of journalism transformed the national and global conversations and the way that we think about our world today. So today I'm really proud to be at UMass Boston and honoring Gwen with the USPS Forever Stamp celebration. It's truly an honor to know that Gwen's life has really transformed so many in the world of journalism, and she's being honored today with a Forever Stamp here at UMass Boston. So thank you so much for listening to this brief biography, and again, I'm so proud to be here. I'd like to now introduce Michael Curry, who is the Deputy CEO and General Counsel of the Mass League of Community Health Centers and past President of the NAACP, which I used to be a board member. Yay. Michael, thank you.
So it is absolutely an honor and a privilege to be here today as we really pay respect and pay tribute to Gwen Ifill, but get to talk about the importance of Black heritage stamps as well. Several years ago, when I was president of the NAACP here in Boston, I was invited down by the United States Postal Service to be a part of an unveiling at that time and a conversation around the stamp that they were releasing. And what it reminded me of as I stood with the workers at the United States Postal Service, who were very proud of the fact that they were releasing yet another stamp, was this issue that we often don't understand history. And all we need is a spark. A spark is a teacher in a classroom, or a stamp that makes us then dig in to understand the history of that person, of the circumstances that surrounded that person. Gwen Ifill is an interesting one that I'm excited to be here today to talk just briefly about. Many of us don't know the challenges that journalists face to tell the story. That all too often, journalism was a field that did not include the rich diversity of African Americans, people of color, Latinos, as well as Asian Americans, in front of the camera, behind the camera, in print, to tell the story. Gwen, as many of us know, you'd watch Gwen on television, and you knew that she wasn't just there to talk about African American issues. Gwen was there to talk politics, to talk policy, to talk issues. Gwen would make sure that she had folks at the table who reflected that rich diversity and would bring that conversation to a place that if you were African American sitting in Roxbury, Massachusetts, or Latino sitting in Chicago, you could identify with that conversation on budgets or healthcare reform or education reform. That is the purpose of a Gwen Ifill, is how do you attach the conversation to people that can then identify with and then know that they should care about that topic. Gwen, I've had an opportunity to meet her on a few occasions in my role on the national board of the NAACP, and my conversations were brief. Little did I know, as of today, that I knew her nephew for many years and did not know that that was her nephew. And if I had had a chance to have a conversation with her about him, I'd tell her how amazing the nephew that she has is. The work that he's doing in filmmaking, the work that he's doing today, and he'll share her story, is powerful. I will tell you this, just as a member of the National NAACP, I will be taking the story back today of the stamp. The National NAACP Convention will be here in July, and I'm hoping we'll get a chance to really celebrate the unveiling of the stamp as some 10,000 people from all over the country come here to have a national conversation about racial discrimination, equity and inclusion, and diversity. It is another chance during that week-long celebration that will happen all around this area to lift up the life and legacy of Gwen Ifill. So on behalf of the National NAACP, I want to say it's an honor to be here today, and we look forward to not just having this be one day of celebrating and learning more about Gwen Ifill, but a year-long celebration. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to now introduce Nia Ham of NBC 10, sister station NECN. Thank you, Nia.
Good morning. Sorry. Afternoon? Okay, sorry. I wake up at 2 a.m. for work. So if you watch your station at 5 a.m., I was there. Good night, right? Thank you so much for having me. It's really an honor to be here. When I was a little girl, I didn't feel as though I was particularly great at any one thing, but I knew what I liked to do, and that was to write. I liked reading as well, but I really loved it when someone would read what I wrote. Stories, poetries, essays, and later on, newspaper and magazine articles. While taking a class on newspaper writing and current events in middle school, I'm from Montclair, New Jersey, probably one of the best teachers I ever had, Mr. Dan Gill, he encouraged this passion of mine, which may have remained just that, only a passion rather than a part of my career path, if not for the encouragement of people like his. And he told me that my writing showed that I had good forethought. As a child of about 10 or 11 years old at the time, while I was flattered, I didn't really understand how that made me a better writer. Looking back on that day, I get it now. As passionate, driven, smart, and accomplished as she was, I believe part of what distinguished Gwen Ifill from many others in this field of journalism was her forethought. For example, when moderating the vice presidential debate back in October of 2004, the then PBS journalist had the courage and forethought to raise perhaps one of the most important questions of the night for millions of Black people, including Black women like herself. Quote, "Mr. Vice President, I want to talk to you about AIDS, and not about AIDS in China or Africa, but AIDS right here in this country, where Black women between the ages of 25 and 44 are 13 times more likely to die of the disease than their counterparts. What should the government's role be in helping to end the growth of this epidemic?" In that moment, Vice President Dick Cheney acknowledged that he was unaware of that statistic, and neither he nor Senator John Edwards could actually give a good answer. But what Gwen Ifill did was to make both the White House and millions of Americans aware that an AIDS epidemic was ravaging Black women in this country without a serious response to combat it from the administration of the time. This type of forethought is what allows journalists like Gwen Ifill and myself to identify important stories to cover and to figure out how best to craft and shape these stories so that they have the maximum impact on the readers. It's what enables journalists to take a story that may otherwise seem quite mundane and figure out how best to tell it so that their audience understands why they should care, as you alluded to earlier. Ifill did this daily, particularly as a political reporter for multiple newspapers, the Washington Post, the New York Times, later as an NBC, before becoming the first African-American woman to host a prominent political talk show on national television, as a moderator and managing editor of PBS Washington Week, and senior political correspondent for the PBS NewsHour. Now, politics is not everybody's cup of tea, but Ifill was really good at making all of us understand how the decisions our elected and government officials made directly impact our lives. And her audience trusted her to do it because she delivered the news, as some would say, straight, no chaser. Many of us here know that Ifill had many ties to the Bay State. As someone mentioned earlier, she was born in New York but spent her childhood in the New England area, living in a range of Massachusetts church parsonages because of her father's church assignments. Ifill graduated from Classical High School in Springfield, Massachusetts. 4 years later, she received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Communications from Simmons College in Boston. And during her senior year, she interned at the Boston Herald. Now, what some people may not know is, as an article in Boston Magazine put it, during her internship, a Herald staff member left a racist note in the photo lab reading, quote, "N-word, go home." The paper offered her a job after the incident to show how apologetic they were. Ifill didn't let this act of hatred get her down. Instead, she continued to rise the ranks in journalism and media, whether or not people were comfortable with her presence as a Black woman, and whether or not she had the forethought to know that she was setting an example by doing just that in an industry where few Black women are able to do so. I have to believe that she did. During a CNN interview, she once said, quote, "I am very keen about the fact that a little girl now watching the news, when they see me and Judy sitting side by side, it will occur to them that that's perfectly normal, that it won't seem like any big breakthrough at all." Well, it was a big breakthrough. I'm one of a number of Black female journalists across the country who, despite great hurdles and barriers, believe that we can do what we do in part because we saw people like Gwen Ifill do it first. And growing up as a Black girl from Jersey, although I never met most of them, thanks to television, I had a few role models who I could observe doing what I love to do and doing it well. Gwen Ifill was a common presence in my household. So by the time my passion for writing and current events began to shape my perspective about who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do in life, and although there weren't a lot of people who looked like me doing it, Gwen Ifill had already become a part of my consciousness and an example of what I could strive for if I worked hard. And I attribute part of that to what psychologists call observational learning. In an article by Kali Raminowitz, a Michigan State University Extension early childhood education educator, she writes, quote, "Children learn and imitate behaviors by watching and listening to others. This is sometimes called observational learning, when children can learn things simply by observing others. The models don't have to be people that the child directly interacts with. Children can learn from models all around them, on television, in grocery stores, at school, and at home." The great irony for me is that when I was a little girl, my father would call the television an idiot box. He did not think I was going to get anywhere in life by watching much television, certainly not if I was going to complete the homework I had from school and the homework he gave me after school. My parents, though, made sure that if the idiot box was on, often it was tuned to the news. That included PBS. And how ironic that that idiot box, as my father called it, would be the window into a world that I desired greatly to be a part of, but may not have taken the leap in faith to do it had I not seen Gwen Ifill on the other side of that television set. She was well aware that she was breaking gender and racial barriers that would pave the way for generations of little girls like me to come. And I enjoy, outside of my full-time job as a TV reporter, podcasting as a hobby. I started doing it just for fun more recently, and then I began to take it more seriously. So eventually I merged my hobby of podcasting with my passion for journalism and my tendency to be a bit of a nerd. And recently I started this limited series podcast about the Tulsa Race Massacre called Black Wall Street 1921. If you don't know, this is an attack that occurred in 1921 when a predominantly Black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma was burned to the ground and hundreds of people were killed in Greenwood, the district in Tulsa, Oklahoma at the time. And that district earned the name Black Wall Street because of how prosperous it was for a Black community at the time. I'm still shocked when I realize how few people knew about what is considered one of the worst incidents of racial violence in American history. There are witness accounts of bombs being dropped on this community during the attack, and if true, this would be the only time in U.S. history where Americans are known to have bombed other Americans on U.S. soil. After researching the accounts of survivors and stories about their family members, it is not lost on me that what these people, who were just, several generations removed from slavery, did was eventually build something that was considered to be the most prosperous Black community in America at the time. And still, what really struck me was that despite the violence, the abject poverty that was so prevalent among many Black communities, despite racism, discrimination, and just about every imaginable hurdle you can think of in the late 19th and early 20th centuries as a Black person in America, when these people built what then became known as Black Wall Street, they did so without asking for permission. This was not a risk-free task by any means at the time, given there were systems put in place to keep Black people in subservient stations in life. But these people, they decided that they were not going to stay put. And more importantly, They had the forethought to understand that if they worked hard and built something for themselves, they could pass it down to future generations and help lift themselves and their families out of what could have only been described as unimaginable circumstances for many of us. By excelling as a Black woman in a predominantly white, male-dominated industry at the time, Gwen Ifill was able to leave behind her legacy, and in doing so, a guide for following one's passion no matter what the hurdles, and not asking for permission to do it. Unfortunately, I'll never get the chance to do this, but if I ever met Gwen Ifill, I would say to her, thank you.
Nia, thank you. Thank you very much. That was great. I would like to introduce close family member of the Ifill family, Michael Ifill.
Let's get this correct. Here we go. First off, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today. The family has celebrated Gwen her whole life before she was just, on TV, trailblazing and setting new standards. It's events like this that show people if you inspire and create at the pace of supreme honesty and have complete faith in what it takes to do the right thing, people will celebrate you. You'll create your own legacy, and you'll move on in a light where you can rest peacefully. And I think I struggled with what to say today because I looked at the lineup of everyone speaking and I said to myself, I have no idea. And then I talked to loved ones and I talked to family, and they told me that you're family. Why would you even have to detail or compare? And that was the one thing that rejogged my memory when me and Gwen used to talk all the time. Through my early 20s, she would always check in on me. She'd send me an email because she was insanely busy, but she would always say, Mike, you have to stick to the script of being a kind human, but you always have to search the truth for yourself, because everything is filtered to you and given to you. And rarely do we find it in ourselves to have the courage to go out there and take things that belong to us, actually. And not in a brute act, but just doing your homework, doing your research. That straight no chaser runs in our family. Everyone says that. All the women in my family are very strong, poetic, storytelling women who have had their own bouts with racism and misogyny, and they never blinked. So for everyone else in the family, we looked at that in a sense of, how can I ever be scared? How could I ever be fleeting in the moment? There is no Ifill that has fight or flight. It's all fight. And so when the family gets together and we talk about just everybody in general, because it's a very female-dominant family, which is beautiful because you get to learn the act of sensitivity and kindness, but also truth. They vibrate with so much love and strength that seeing things like this today really show you what path you should walk on, really show you the people that matter, the things that hold truth till this day. Her legacy will live on forever, and I'll do everything in my power to carry that legacy as well. But I'm not alone in that, because I see beautiful people in this room that share the same sentiment. I know family shares the same sentiment. I would never want to overshare the conversations that we did have over the time, but the one main point that was reoccurring in all the old emails and text conversations and some of the voicemails that she used to leave me was that, Mike, never be deterred. it's always horse blinders on topic. And that's what we saw from her from outside looking in, but we also saw that from the inside looking out. And so, with the final statements, I would just like to say, now that we are all an extended family, because we have honored this stamp, purchased this stamp, we'll send it to loved ones. I guarantee you that stamp won't go out to people that don't deserve it. And just for me, as family, that chokes me up a little bit inside, because this is my first public sharing of how we dealt with her passing. And this is beautiful, and I'd like to say thank you to everybody, and thank you for having me.
Wow. I would like to introduce someone who needs no introduction here at UMass Boston, Dr. Keith Motley.
So, good morning, everybody. So why is he coming out of hiding to participate in this event today? Well, I am part of this program today because I have the honor of having been with your family member when we were here in this city as youngsters, going to college, loving each other, protecting each other, and I have the honor now of serving on Gwen's college. Can you imagine that? She has a college named for her over at Simmons, and so I had the honor of opening up the Gwen Ifill month outside of her church back down in D.C., here in Massachusetts, opening that up that day. So for those of you that I don't know, I'm Keith. I'm Keith Motley. I'm honored to be here today. I'm honored to have served you as your chancellor, but I'm also honored to be among you serving these students as we continue to build one of the greatest institutions in the world, the University of Massachusetts, Boston. I want to thank all of you for coming out in honor of such an incredible human being today. You know, when you're youngsters, you don't think of yourselves like that. We just knew that we were going over Simmons because there were some incredibly talented, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful individuals over there. But not only that, we were going because we knew that this was all about the community that we were building here in Boston. And so your family member was a magnificent part of that. You sort of know that you know when you meet somebody that they have that thing. So you knew that she had that thing, but we also knew that there were many of us who had that thing too. The difference is she got a stamp. But here's the good thing, and I said it to them before. I said, what I love about her stamp is she got a beautiful stamp. Now, I know you've seen some of the stamps. Some of those stamps don't look like you, or they don't look like that person. That is a beautiful stamp, but when you see it unveiled again today, look at it. But I'd love you to go over to Simmons. I know I'm not supposed to be hyping up another college. I know they're all looking at me because he lost his mind. They didn't even allow me to say the college on Huntington Avenue for 15 years over here. But you got to go to Simmons and see Gwen's college. Go and just spin around and take a look. It's an amazing, amazing, amazing facility with talented students, incredible faculty, but it will remind you of the soul of that person. If my sister was here, you would not be watching people destroy each other on stage, because she'd have control of that and be able to sort of put it in perspective for all of us in a way that makes a lot of sense. You know, Dr. King said to us, he said, if you want to change the world, pick up a pen and write. We want you to start picking up a pen and write sometimes. Today you're going to have that opportunity. You're going to have an opportunity to sit down, right, Kareem? And write a note to somebody, tell them about this event, but also send them Gwen's stamp. Understand that. See, the reason why so many of us get so worked up about this opportunity, we know she's still present. She's present in a lot of the work that we do. She's present in our souls and that kind of thing. But we remember what it was like for us. We remember being those students back there that had each other. And now when I look around and see all of you here, I'm so grateful that our students today have all of you. And so thank you for that. Now, I know that I'm supposed to, my boy told me, because I'm teaching a class right now. And my class came with me. Where's my class? Wave your hands, class. But I had to entice them. I told them there was food up here, but I also told them there was a stamp. And I told them that it was about Gwen. So they wanted to run up here. But I'm so grateful that they have a chance to experience this opportunity as well. Now, I know that I'm supposed to, are you going to introduce our next speaker? Okay. Let me just tell you that one of the greatest things that has happened is to get to know and to work with all of the staff of our United States Postal Service. I had a chance to work with them over at Simmons, but I know Kareem and Donna and others have had a chance, and as I watched them work, it's been amazing for us. And I know that Leroy Middleton is here today. And Leroy, we don't put acting in front of nothing. Okay? He's postmaster who's acting like the real thing. He's here today, and he wants to have some words, and then he's also going to direct us into how we're going to continue to celebrate Gwen. But let me just tell you, she was an incredible human being. She has, the stories that we have, can't share them just like you talked about. But know that we all ended up here, and it's an amazing thing. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you to all the speakers, and to Kareem. Come here. Come here. So he had called me to tell me that he wanted to do something for Gwen. And it broke my heart to tell him that we were doing something for Gwen over at Simmons, because it was almost like I was a traitor or something. Well, almost, but not quite. Not quite. And so I said, well, we could do something over here too. And so he did it, and it's amazing. And everywhere I look, in fact, I've been stealing posters all week. Good. Putting them in my office. I stole one and brought it to class with me today. So thank you for all your hard work. Give Kareem a round of applause. And come on up here. You got it, man.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Keith, I thought we were going to get along well. Michael had this primed just perfect. I found out Michael and I are both 6'5". So, again, my name is Leroy Middleton. I'm actually from Florida. I got here about 4 months ago. And I will tell you, when I first found out that I was coming to Florida, the biggest challenge was, if you're from outside this area, you know what NFL team everyone hates. So I'm slowly turning into a Patriots fan. So I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting there. So, but again, we had a event in Roxbury this past Tuesday, and I have to admit, some of the Black history in the area is somewhat regional, and you would not know more about it until you're here for a period of time. But when it comes to Ms. Ifill, I will say that people from outside the area are quite familiar with her. So I'm quite honored to be here today. The Greater Boston District is honored to have been invited to participate in this ceremony celebrating Ms. Ifill and the release of the Forever stamp dedicated to her. The Gwen Ifill stamp is the 43rd stamp in the Black Heritage series and honors one of America's most esteemed journalists. She was among the first African Americans to hold prominent positions in both broadcast and print journalism. She was a trailblazer in her profession. Gwen Ifill was known for her nonpartisan and in-depth reporting. I think everyone agrees that's kind of missed today. Her tremendous personal warmth, coupled with her integrity, tenacity, and intellect, gave her an authoritative professional presence. Viewers trusted her to provide accurate, fair, and balanced reporting. Again, that's missed as well today. Ms. Ifill believed that her job was to bring light rather than heat to issues of the day. One of the nation's most admired journalists, Ms. Ifill brought clarity and honesty to her work. Her commitment to public interest made her a standard barrier to journalism. Today, along with her nephew Michael, friends, associates, and the University of UMass Boston community, we celebrate and remember Gwen Ifill and dedicate the Gwen Ifill Forever stamp with them. So, Michael, if you could come up, please. We're going to stamp it here. Okay. All right. You want both sides? Okay, so what we have a engraved stamp for Neil Ham. Thank you. Of course, Michael. I'm not 6'5", that's what I can. Thank you, sir. Diane Rio. Diane. And then if Donna Stewartson. Remember, I'm new here, but I'm gonna learn these spaces and names now.
You got two. That's what you got two for.
Yeah, I got 2 eyes.
Come on, here.
Okay, you
Would you
got
let me just get on both sides? Yeah.
It's not the good side, but I'll do
But I don't have one.
this screen.
That's it.
Okay.
I just want a little picture.
I know you are.
There you go.
One more. Okay. How you doing over?
Yeah, what's that do?
You step back.
Okay.
Okay. That's it.
I want to.
Right in there. Thank you.
You're like I'm in Sears.
I know, right?
Let me, if you allow me to close it, you can take all the pictures you want.
Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. One second. Thank you, everybody. First off, I want to give you some closing remarks and a few acknowledgments. I want to say many thanks to our co-sponsors. Again, I would like to say many thanks to our co-sponsors. Campus Services, thank you guys. Thank you. Really, thank you for the mic. Thank you guys. Center for Women in Politics and Public Policy, thank you. Division of Athletics, Recreational, Special Projects and Program, thank you guys. I mean, it took a village to put this together, and we've had a lot of helping hands in this. Division of Student Affairs, Office of Community Partnerships and City Engagement, Office of Diversity and Equity. I want to say thank you for Sodexo for providing us the food. Fun Enterprises, thank you guys. Media Services for filming this. Emerging Leaders Program, which helped me design the speaking program, thank you guys. I want to thank my staff who are here today. They're kind of obscured in the back. Thank you guys. Thank you. Yep. Thank you, Leroy, in the United States Post Office. I hope we do more of these. I really do. This is the first stamp unveiling on this campus, and what an event. Yep, it really is. This is really nice. Thank you so much, everybody. I want to plug, first of all, that we are selling books of stamps. Please buy stamps, and also, like Keith said, we also have postcards, which we will affix a Gwen Ifill Forever stamp to that you can mail to anybody. Writing a postcard is one of the most intimate things you can do today. Who would have ever thought? But yeah, please take advantage of our writing program. Keith Meredith, thank you. Thank you for being our post guy, man. Thank you. And I want to also say, please use the post office boxes that are here. Mailbox are still relevant today. Use them. They give jobs. Thank you very much. Yep. All right.